Welcome back to the CineClub podcast. I'm Billy.
I'm Jake.
I'm Rhys.
And I'm Connell. This week we'll be talking about the slasher subgenre of horror films after my screening of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and in anticipation of Black Christmas being screened later this year at CineClub.
So, to get things started, and in the words of Scream's very own Ghostface, what's your favourite scary movie?
Ooh,
Peak
ominous.
voice there.
Personally, I've got to go with the original Halloween by John Carpenter. It's very close with a couple of others, but
Yeah,
I just keep coming back to that one over and over.
can't argue with that. It's in my top 5 as well. I think that, and Shining usually is the one that tops my list. I think
yeah.
The Shining, The Thing, and Evil
Thing's my
Dead 2 are generally
Evil Dead 2 so good,
my
man.
go-to.
Yeah.
I think that's like my top
I'm yet
3.
to watch the Evil Dead.
Really?
Yeah, I'm yet
Have
to
you
watch
never?
the Evil
Oh,
Dead.
they're,
No, I haven't.
they're so you. I feel like you just
Yeah.
love them because
I mean, I know like a couple of the quotes where it's just like, "Oh, this is my boomstick." That one, I know that
Yeah.
one, but
Yeah.
like that's probably the only one I know.
you gotta watch them because you'd love them. You genuinely would. So
You
Yeah.
don't need to know anything about anything to go into them. There's no plot
Just go
whatsoever.
blind.
You just things happen in these
Yeah,
films.
it's just pure
It's
insanity.
insane, yeah.
it is really. I mean, yeah, it's like student films, but with a half decent budget.
Basically.
That's kind of what they're like as they gradually go on.
That
so.
actually sounds quality. to be
They're so
honest.
fun. Yeah, you got to do it.
I'm also a bit of a lover of Nightmare on Elm Street, not just the original, but the series. I know, Jake, you've seen a couple of them.
Yeah, I like what I've seen so far. I mean, I sort of skimmed it and watched what I'd heard was the best. So the original, which is my favourite, Dream Warrior's the third one, and New Nightmare, and I really like all of them. I just keep meaning to go back and watch the rest, sort of fill in the blanks. But
I think you've gotten the right ones there, because those three are by far the best ones. But the rest of the series, aside from Freddy's Dead and the reboot,
okay.
they're all right.
They're
not
fun,
They're not.
yeah.
They're fun enough, and it's worth it for the ridiculous practical effects that are in them.
Yeah.
But they're not great narratively.
Yeah,
they're a fun time.
I've got quite a high tolerance for stuff like that, though, because I mean, I've watched most of the Friday the 13th with the same logic of like, there's no plot, the acting's terrible, most of it's crap. You just watch it for the cool practical effects and just to see what Jason's getting up to this year. Like, it's kind of the same structure, and that goes for most slasher series. Really, I think Halloween kind of has that too. I mean, obviously the difference there is the first one is so good that it like completely invented the genre basically, and then the sequels aren't as good. I still think some of them are decent though. I think
None of them have ever held a candle to the
they've
original.
never held a
though.
candle to the original, but I still think in the month of October I do quite like. I'll always watch the original, but if I can find time for like 2 or 4 or some of the like even the reboot, I think some of the like half decent ones from 2018 onwards were like pretty decent. So but.
I don't know why, but Dream Warriors reminds me of like, it sounds like the title of like a Paper Mario game.
It does.
It's
Nintendo's Dream Warriors
Nintendo's Dream
come to
Warriors
Switch
featuring
next,
Freddy
yeah.
Krueger.
Featuring Freddy Krueger.
I always get like those sort of three films. There's Dream Warriors, Dream Masters, and the Dream Child, and I always get them all mixed up because the titles are so similar.
It's like the Halloween Pink Panther trilogy. I saw somebody call it because they've got it's like The Curse of Michael Myers, The Revenge of Michael Myers, and The Return of Michael Myers, I think. But there was Pink Panther sequels, which were also The Curse, The Return, and The Revenge. So it's like the exact same sort of problem where it's like, which is which? I can't remember. Why don't you just number them? Like, just make it easy. But
What about you, Rhys?
I am thinking, I'm split at the moment. There's a lot of horror films I love, a lot of them that aren't very good as well. I think The Thing, and after recently seeing The Fog on Halloween, that is one of my favourite films of all time, just stylistically. The music, the atmosphere it sets up in the first 10 minutes is absolutely brilliant, and the actual like appearance of these like ghostly fog men.
Pirate.
It's
sort of
so cool. It's ghost pirates, which is also always going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And the way they go about showing them and
Yeah.
the way they actually go about like hunting people down is quite scary. Texas Chainsaw is also up my favourites.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that when we get on to that.
Great
Yeah, it is
film.
brilliant film. But a lot of like recent horror films, I can't really think of any that I've seen that have really impressed us. I think a lot of the ones that come out now tend to be quite like slop.
They're just
You know what I mean?
either
Yeah,
too jump scary, too CGI'd, or too overdone.
Mhm.
Yeah,
There's not like
just
really
like
much.
Blumhouse churning out
pretty
random horror film after.
much. Yeah, it's just jump scares that you see in the trailer and just that year
That
after
scene
year.
of jump scares, though, I gotta say, A Quiet Place utilises it really well.
Yeah,
that's an
yeah.
exception,
Really well,
I'd
I
say.
think,
But other times, yeah, I get what you mean about Blumhouse.
You don't get many
Even though they do make
slashers
some
now
good
either,
stuff.
like really in general. I mean, I know the 80s kind of killed it because it was so oversaturated, but like I feel like you still would see more in this day and age with the sort of obsession with serial killers and like that kind of thing. There's just not really many slasher films anymore.
Then again, I feel like it's had a bit of a resurgence recently because going back to Blumhouse, you've had Freaky, Megan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose they are kind of similar.
There's a couple of others, but the Black Phone, that's what I was thinking
Oh,
of.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then you've
yeah.
also got Terrifier, which is a brand
Oh,
new series
yeah,
that's
yeah,
taken the
yeah.
world
That's
by storm.
the slasher of the slasher of the month at the minute, or
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
most
Slasher of the
relevant.
century.
It's like, yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
slasher of the
basically, so
decade,
far.
really.
I know,
I can't really
I
comment because I've not seen it, but in terms of like a new slasher character to add to that sort of pantheon of like the most famous ones, I think Art the Clown's definitely one. I mean, just on Halloween, you saw like loads of people dressed up as them. That's usually when you know they've made it into the sort of big time pop culture when it's like when everybody's sort of going for that, and it's like, so yeah, that is a good point. I'd forgot about those, but and even I mean, Megan is like getting a sequel. That's effectively just like a sort of modern take on the Child's Play idea, just without the possession. I think I haven't seen Megan.
Yeah, it's just it's sort of like what they did with the Child's Play reboot, where it was more like
right, okay.
AI goes rogue. It's pretty much exactly that.
Okay, so it's like Age of Ultron
Yeah.
rather than like Brad Dourif's spirit trapped in a doll or whatever.
Peace in our time.
Speaking of Child, I think that Child's Play, the original trilogy of them, is one of those series that for me it gets better as they go on.
Yeah.
Because like I was sort of so and so on the original, but I quite enjoyed the second one, especially. I think the thing that wins me over with them is the final acts in each film.
Yeah.
Because the second one, it's in the toy factory from where they make
cool.
all the
Right, okay.
dolls, which is cool. But then the third one, it's inside of a ghost train in a traveling circus.
Oh wow.
And
So
it's
like
got some insane visuals for like a third
for
Child's Play film.
low budget like sequel to Child's Play. Yeah, I've seen the first one and I've always meant to go back and watch the others because I have heard that, like you say, the trilogy's pretty good, and then it goes all kinds of crazy with the various sequels and brides and children and God knows what. But
Nothing can ever compel me to watch a film called Seed of Chucky.
No, that's a disgusting title.
Apparently the TV show's meant to be quite good as well. There's
I've
a
heard
Chucky
that.
TV show that's come out quite recently and that's meant to be half decent, but it's another one that's just on the list waiting to get watched, so we'll get around to it eventually. But yeah, Child's Play is a good point. I think that gets lost because they are slasher films very much in the same sense. Just
I think when you look at like the sort of Mount Rushmore of slashers,
Yeah.
I think usually Chucky, I would say it's Freddy, it's Jason, and it's Michael.
Myers,
And then I
yeah.
think the fourth one, it's usually either filled by Chucky, Ghostface, or Leatherface.
Yeah, that's totally fair
I'd say
enough.
more
I think.
Leatherface,
Yeah.
though,
Yeah.
for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons.
I think the only thing that excludes Leatherface from it slightly is that's one of the only slasher series where it hasn't got like 10 sequels. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre has quite a few sequels, but like generally like they get so like beat into the ground with like all the like, you know, even Nightmare on Elm Street, see, that's a shorter series, but there's still like what, like 6, 7, 8 films or something like that.
Yeah.
And like, you know,
If you
think-
include New Nightmare 7.
there you go, 7 if you include New Nightmare. So like, yeah, so I feel like that's kind of par for the course with those films where it's like once it gets to that point where they're just doing it again and again, but like with slightly different skews. Like, what if it was Jason in space, or what if it was Michael controlled by a cult, or all these random sort of takes?
What
I
if
think.
Jason was like a weird, hellish slug who can transform people into
Yeah,
Jason?
exactly. Jason Goes to Hell, that one, isn't it? I think. Yeah, I was going to say that's the only one I've got on VHS, which is really sad because I want some of the actual half decent ones on VHS. But I've just got,
The Adventures of Jason the Hell Slug.
yeah,
Is that
literally,
what
it's
it
like
is?
that's what I'm stuck with. I'm like, God's sake, it's like. But yeah, there you go. Well, what made you pick Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Connell? I mean, I know you have a bit of a horror comedy history with your CineClub suggestions, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, classic film. This is a step beyond that, though. This is more full horror. So, what compelled you? Other than me saying I'd never seen it before, which I do think played a strong factor.
Well, of course, like at the time when we started CineClub this year, I wanted to kind of get my film done pretty quickly because I wanted like a Halloween one kind of to show.
You made a good shout there, like, because that was like before the slots got filled.
But yeah, I kind of just went through and I was thinking, what is something that is a classic but also just like holds up, which I think holds up today, even in terms of its horror elements. So I was like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like, go straight for the first one. 1974 it was released.
Anniversary as well, wasn't it? It was the 50th last year, so that was perfect timing.
But yeah, like from what you said earlier about like Halloween properly starting the slasher genre kind of thing, I'd say that Texas Chainsaw Massacre walked so Halloween could fly.
Yeah, run or fly.
Run or fly, you know.
It was definitely the blueprint.
It is.
Like, because it's not. I agree that it's not completely perfect. But it's there, like, for what it is at the time.
I agree with you that it hasn't aged. I think the fact that it's such a dirty, low-budget 70s film makes it better, to be honest. Like, I think if it was made 10 years later or after Halloween, it wouldn't be anywhere near as effective or memorable as it actually is in that sort of window. And totally, it's a great film, and it's just the way it does things, because even, because it's like, it was quite hard to look at it as like a before everything else, because I kept thinking, that's like such a different way to do a slasher film, but I was like, that was the only way to do a slasher film. That was like the first time they'd ever really done it. Like, and I just love the whole idea that it's like, unlike Halloween where like the horror comes to them, it's this sort of, they all go to it, and it's kind of like, is it their fault? Not really, but then they're like, and they're meddling about, and then he just rocks up out of nowhere. It's like completely unannounced. Like
best horror entrance probably ever.
100%, because he just comes out of nowhere, and it's so cool.
I think what makes it so effective is that nowadays, or like, I mean, even after Texas Chainsaw, like, they would have like a sting in there, which is obviously like, the massive loud sounds and stuff like that.
John Carpenter falling asleep on his keyboard.
I know just hear him go, Roxanne.
That's what they do. It's like I love Halloween, but I do think like every time he appears, he's like there's a little like, there's always like,
but it's like, I think it's because of the fact that there is not a sting there. It's just like he just shows up, and the guy who gets killed is just like, and then
it seems so realistic, doesn't it? Because it just seems entirely as if he's just wandered into a house and suddenly it's like, shit, like, you've gone into the wrong house, some guy's battered his head in.
It's like you've got no time to get away because he's just right there.
It's totally unexpected.
It's so instant as well, isn't it? Like, looking at that film, like the path the slasher usually takes is they get picked off one by one till there's only one left, and then right at the end they escape, right? But for Texas Chainsaw, 3 of them get absolutely just murdered in like the same 10 minutes.
Really quick succession, exactly.
Our first guy, what's the first guy's name?
I can't remember all the names.
The jock guy.
Kurt, whatever he is. Yeah, the guy in the blue, right? He just gets bashed on the head and then he's dead. He doesn't do a single move for the rest of the film.
That's it, yeah, exactly.
And that's really scary, because there's no chase, there's no chance of escape for most of them, which I really like about it. There's a chance of escape for the final girl. You've got to have the final girl. Chance. You've got to have her, yeah.
Even that, she survives, but like the entire, basically like this whole third act is just dedicated to torturing her in this house of horrors, watching all these freaks, like, and then eventually she gets out.
All the close-ups of her eye while she's at
exactly that. It's like so cool.
It's like, I think it's also the fact that they don't necessarily have a soundtrack. Like, it's like those bits that you hear.
It's just like ominous noise,
isn't
it?
It's like industrial noise. Like, it makes it uncomfortable.
That
like,
with the camera flashing or whatever it is, where it's like,
that's iconic.
It's so cool. It is really, really good. Yeah,
it's a very confrontational opening as well for this film. Like, just the shot of that like corpse
shot
on
of a corpse,
on a pike, basically. It is horrendous.
Do they do? Because I mean, it was another thing I liked about the fact that usually slasher, they always have there's always the sort of backstory. There'll be like some sort of, don't go there, there's a legend that says that this guy will come and kill you. I don't think they do that in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No.
They just rock up and there's just a guy there. Like, it's not like...
You've got the opening monologue where it's sort of trying to tell you that it's a real story,
Yeah.
but it's nothing that it's something for us, the audience, rather than
it's not
the
like
characters.
putting a name on it where it's like Friday the 13th. It's like, oh, you meddling kids, stay away that Camp Crystal Lake, or like even like Halloween, because you have that Dr. Loomis and he's all like, I'm tired of trying to fix him. He's just pure evil. And then he just takes the car and he's like, buggered it.
Taking it quite lightly, isn't
Within
it?
about
He's gone.
No, he's gone now.
It's like every time. But that's exactly what Halloween films always start like that. They're always like, this guy, he's like a legend. He killed so many people. He's so dangerous. It's like the most loose security you've ever seen. The most useless like transit. It's like, oh my God, these people are just asking for it now.
It's kind of like something oddly hilarious about just seeing a guy like in like a hospital gown, but even it'd be funny if he had his mask on at the time. He's just running around with that NPC kind of run.
They'll let him keep the mask just because they're too scared to take it off him. How did he get out as well in the first Halloween? We don't know, do we?
They never really say.
Nah,
they just,
he's just kind of out.
Do they normally let them walk around like this? And
I think that was that, and then they saw the gate open. I think,
and then his little hand comes down.
And he just sods off in the car.
Is that you get the shot of him jumping over with the like really high pitch like synth noise?
It's the most athletic Michael Myers has been.
Yeah, exactly. He actually looks quite with it in that film, to be fair. But
back on Texas Chainsaw, what do we think of the cast of this film? Like, in terms of the actual characters, not the actors. Like, because I think it's a great level of like evil diversity we have in this film. Because it's not just Leatherface. He is an effective horror villain on his own, I think. But without being paired with the rest of his family, I don't think he works as well. Because on his own, he's just kind of a mindless, kind of weird madman. But who isn't in a slasher mill? In a slasher mill? In a slasher
mill.
Slasher mill.
Where he works.
Slasher film. But like the hitchhiker and, I don't know, we call him the kook. That's what we call him in the game,
I think the kook's like one of the most effective characters in the film, especially at that dinner table scene where he sat there and he's sort of like looking a bit remorseful, but then he just bursts out laughing, then he goes back to looking remorseful. It's so striking, that performance. And I looked it up. I think he's only been in the first and second Texas Chainsaw. He was never really a big film star. So it was just like his performance was so good in that.
Yeah.
It was very, very deceiving when it's like she's like running away from Leatherface, and then once she actually comes in contact with Drayton, I think that's his actual name.
Yeah.
But and he's like, oh, there's nobody out there, that kind of thing. And then he comes back and just puts the bag over her head and that kind of shit, and like thinking, oh God. Like,
he's really, really good, that whole thing. I mean, the only thing that I don't buy about Texas Chainsaw Massacre is how he can keep running. He's running about with a massive chainsaw.
Oh, yeah.
And like, there's like a
15,
20 minute chase scene. He doesn't stop or pause at all. He's just absolutely hoofing it.
He's just got that like athleticism. Like, I don't know.
He's quite a bulky bloke.
He's not built like a fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
He's built like a brick shit.
Yeah, he's not built like a runner. He's just like legging it with a big heavy chainsaw that he keeps running the whole time.
You can stop Michael Myers. You can stop Freddy, you can stop Jason. You can't stop Leatherface, who's just going to like mull through whatever you put in front of him.
Like plows right through. Yeah,
when she gets to that gas station and she's hiding from Leatherface, like on a first watch, you expect the coot to go at the door, and Leatherface is just going to shove his chainsaw right through him and cut open the door. It's gonna, the illusion of safety. But no, I think it makes it even worse that he's like kind of insidious about it.
She thinks she's going to be all right, and then crap! Like it plays on your expectations so well, which is so bizarre because there were no expectations to play on at the time, which is why it's still. I think that's why it's aged really well, because it's such a different kind of slasher film and horror film in general. It's just awesome.
Like I'd say, like with the kook or Drayton, is like his insidious nature, like kind of pans out to the other 2 or 3 even, like in there. So like the hitchhiker, Nubbins, and then grandpa or granddad or whatever.
I'm the hitchhiker at the start as well, with the bit where he like cuts his heart.
It's horrible
Stuff like it's like it just makes you genuinely like uncomfortable even from the very sort of first moment.
It's like,
but
I feel like his whole way of how he is and his manipulation is, you can see that go off through Leatherface, because Leatherface is kind of unique as a slasher because he kills out of fear more than anything.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like it's weird to say, but he does kind of just kill out of fear.
Yeah,
I get what you
Like,
mean.
it's,
There was a comic that they did where it was Jason meeting Leatherface, and they sort of went into that more how Leatherface was basically being terrorized by his family, and then Jason was sort of had like a kinship with him and stood up for him and all that.
It's like his best pal.
Slasher cute.
That's quite sweet.
I'm just picturing that
That's
bit in
cool.
Sonic 3 where it's like the two Robotniks, but it's just Jason and Leatherface, like having a little,
With galvanized
yeah, like a
background.
lovely little bonding moment, like just like sort of becoming best pals. Yeah, because they don't. I mean, not to like go full Scream, but like generally they do have the rules, and I mean, Leatherface doesn't really kill based on the usual like don't have sex, don't drink, don't enjoy yourself in a sort of adult, like, you know, kind of way, like a teenager kind of thing, but
It's just indiscriminate carnage, and
it's
that's why it's so
yeah,
effective.
Yeah.
that's why it's so effective, because you just don't know really what's going on.
Okay, so what does everyone think makes a good slasher film? With it always been a really, really fine line between good and bad, I'm quite curious. I think, personally, a good, like, cast that you can get invested in makes it quite a good film.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because in
100%.
Texas Chainsaw we have the dude in the wheelchair, what's he called again? I forgot his name. Only watched it yesterday.
Dude in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Let's just
He's
go.
called
We watched it.
Franklin, I
Franklin,
think.
that's
He's
it,
the only one I remember.
Yeah. I think he's quite effective because you do start to feel like sorry for him throughout the film because his friends are just leaving behind,
Yeah.
and him getting like you're worried for him because you know there's this killer about it. It's a slasher film going into which with the knowledge that slasher films exist and that this is one of them. You're worried about him because he can't even run away.
He can't
so to
get
speak.
yeah,
he can't get away.
He can't run away.
And
Like, you've
that's
seen the
paid
way.
off in the film
Yeah.
when Leatherface just comes out of nowhere. That's one of the scariest scenes in the whole film.
Oh,
I think.
yeah, that-
he
I
just
mean-
comes out of darkness, out of nowhere. It's the fact that you see his eyes
Everybody
beneath the
jumped
mask
in the
as well.
cinema when we were
Yeah.
watching it. Then
Yeah.
I think
It's
I remember
so
everybody.
scary.
I knew it was coming.
I
It's
did not
so
see it
creepy.
coming at all. It was so good.
And Franklin just gets like instantly diced. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the most
I
like
forgot he
pitiable moves.
dies.
And
Yeah.
like
I don't know why I thought he survived. I just forgot that they all
He just happy wheels us away.
Happy Wheels. They just
Oh
pulled
my
him down a hill like Mac and me. He just off he goes to safety.
But yeah, you think about the cast, I agree, because like relating it back to some other series, I feel like when they've got recurring characters or characters that you can get invested in,
Yeah,
they're a lot better. So like going back to Elm Street, all the ones with Heather Langenkamp in are the
Yeah,
best ones because you get
Nancy.
invested in Nancy. And then with Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis, you get invested in the ones with her in.
yeah.
And then when she disappears, you're sort of like, I'm not really bothered.
Sydney
Sydney and
anymore.
Scream
Yeah,
as well,
Sydney
I
and
think, is a
Scream.
good example
Yeah.
because you have that once you have a consistent arc, that makes it better because you want to see them survive and you want to see them keep going. Which I think that's where I think Friday the 13th falters, because they tried to do that with Tommy Jarvis, but they like recast him twice in the different films, and he's like a completely different character also in both of the films, and he's also a complete idiot because he's the whole reason everything that happens after part 6 is entirely his fault because he brings Jason back to life accidentally because he just thinks that Jason's dead and has to make sure, and then he gets struck by lightning and Jason's back.
that is so stupid.
Well,
that
they
is
did
moron.
something similar after Dream Warriors. The recast Patricia Arquette's character
Oh, did that?
with, I think she's called Tuesday Night or something like that. I know it's the most bizarre. It's one of the most bizarre names you've ever heard. But like the recast her, and then you lose all investment because they've still got the other Dream Warriors who are still alive.
And then this
But-
random person who's supposed to be the Patricia
Yeah.
Arquette character. Oh,
You'd-
yeah, that's not
and
the
then
same.
spoiler alert, they're not around for very long.
Yeah.
And they just basically write off the entire like momentum that the series has been going in just immediately, and then they introduce this other new final girl, and you don't get the same amount of investment in her
Yeah.
because the story that they choose for her is really bizarre.
Agreed. I think there is a strong case to be made that when they get the characters back, they've got. I mean, it's good to get them back, but they've also got to do something good with it because I feel like there's a lot of times when they bring them back, but it's like for the Force Awakens trailer effect where it's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis is like, Michael, you're finally back, like that kind of stupid thing. Where as long as they do something good with the character, I think it's okay. But like, because they can take it in so many different ways depending on the series, because even with Halloween they bring the character of Laurie Strode back multiple times, and most of it's not even like canonically linked to itself as well. I have like the H2O timeline and the 2018 reboot timeline, and it's like, I think when you get to that point, you should probably just stop. But yeah, you need
the name H2O. It's just water.
Yeah, it's meant to be H20, but I call it H2O because you read it as H2O. That's what it looks like. So, but yeah, I mean, because Friday the 13th Part 4 is one of my favorite slashers of all time, mostly because that one has a like much better cast than the others. It has some recognizable actors, so it's got Crispin Glover, George McFly, so he's pretty cool, and then you get Tommy Jarvis played by Corey Feldman, which is really good because he's like really good in it, and the whole character is that he makes like his own special effects. So it was when they had Tom Savini doing the special effects, it was basically just his window to show off all these like creature puppets that he'd made, but like through this character of Tommy Jarvis who makes like monster masks and creature puppets, and it's really cool, and you sort of root for them because you really like Tommy because he's like a kid who's like terrified of Jason, but not only like the family don't believe he's real, and then you get the sort of teenagers, and in the Crispin Glover character, I can't remember what he's called, the actual character, but he's like, he's he's a bit of a weird nerd, but he's like sort of got a crush on the girl, and you're kind of rooting for that, and it's like it just works really well because they're all just quite normal characters rather than the usual, slasher knife fodder who you're just kind of either desperate to see get killed or don't really care either way. So
I think like what you're saying there, you need substance to back it up.
Yes, otherwise it means nothing. Like,
So yeah, it's like to relate it back to a modern slasher. I haven't personally seen them, but Terrifier, I feel like it's just gore for the sake of gore. There's no substance or anything interesting to back it up. So like, if you're going to do that, at least make the kills interesting. And I don't mean like really brutally interesting, just like do it in an interesting way. Do something
creative with it. Exactly.
Like Freddy versus Jason, where Jason just folds someone up with a bed.
Oh my God.
What are the best kills, though? I am curious. If you had to pick a favourite kill in the slasher film? I'm trying to think of one now.
I'm going to go back to Dream Warriors. I really like, I think it's one of the first kills of the group. And when he basically, the kid that gets killed, he makes his own puppets.
I was just about to say that.
Slashes his arms, gets the tendons out, and uses them like a marionette and makes him. But to everyone else, it just looks like he's sleepwalking.
Yeah.
And makes him sleepwalk up to the top of this tower and makes him jump off. But then, like, you get this really cool shot where it's just
Freddy above,
a
like
massive
controlling him like a marionette.
It's such a good film.
It's really cool. Yeah, I love that one. I think the sleeping bag kill from Friday Part 7 always comes to mind for me, where he basically just picks up somebody in a sleeping bag and just smashes them against a tree repeatedly, and that's it. That's the kill. It's just stupid, but it is quite funny.
Right, so of course we've talked a lot about favourite horror slashers and stuff like that, but what about some favourite horror directors? Because mine has got to be John Carpenter, of course. I know it seems like
I think we all have the same.
I think we're all going to think exactly the same, but like, it's personally for me because he also is responsible for my favourite horror film of all time, which is The Thing, which we've mentioned a couple of that times. Even then, I don't know if it can be really classed as a slasher per se. It's just like, I see it as a sci-fi horror, like as if it were Alien or anything like that. But
I think his catalogue's just unmatched. It's like Halloween, The Thing, The Fog, Prince of Darkness, In the Mouth of Madness. You could
Christine,
go on.
there's so many, and the thing, and the fact that he's like not even he's so good at horror, but then he does other stuff as well, and is still quite good at that too. Like Big Trouble in Little China, for example. That's just sick.
What a film!
But
I think Wes Craven's also worth a shout.
Yeah, totally.
Because you've got Nightmare and New Nightmare, and then you've got the first 4 Scream films, which they're all brilliant as well. And then, not that I've seen them, but you've got The Hills Have Eyes and stuff like that as well. What about Sam Raimi as well?
Sam Raimi.
Oh, yes.
John Landis, maybe. American Werewolf in London, and like Twilight Zone, the movie, stuff like that. He's definitely done another horror film, but I cannot remember for the life of us what it was. Anyway, he's done all sorts, but he's another one like Carpenter where he like you can, to go from the Blues Brothers and Animal House to American Werewolf in London, and it'd be like the greatest werewolf film of all time, and just out of nowhere, it's ridiculous. But yeah,
I feel like there's not a lot of like presence with directors in horror films. Like there are some who have the style like John Carpenter, Wes Craven, but like a lot of them make one like absolute banger of a film and they kind of disappear,
and then they just kind of
underlooked as a genre as well. I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think another point with the just slasher films in general, I feel like sometimes they don't even have to be good to be enjoyable, because quite a lot of my favorite slashers and horrors in general are just ones that are generally critically panned or everybody thinks they're universally terrible, but I just always want to go back to them because they're just fun. So
yeah, there's definitely one which I think of. It's called Don't Go in the Woods Alone.
Oh yeah,
it's like really it's one of the worst like films I've ever seen, but it's so bad it's good. Like there's so many daft moments in there. Like the acting is just shite, and the killer is not even scary. It's just some like guy with like the animal skins. Like, well, it looks like he's just wearing a fur coat, really, but like he's a bit of a mentalist.
There's like so many from the 80s that I think just get overlooked. Like I really like, there's one called The Gate, which I feel like nobody's ever seen.
In Newcastle?
No, not that gate. It's like it's these like two kids and they like play a record backwards, and it like basically opens a gate to hell in their back garden, and then it's just got these really fantastic special effects where it's like forced perspective with these like little demons, but all of the demons are like people in suits, but they look like little tiny dudes running about the house, and they're like possessing all these people. It's really good.
Borrowers.
Honestly, it's like it's like Evil the Borrowers, but like with this the whole thing where it's like a metal record, and it's like it's the two kids and the older sister basically like defending the house from these like demons, and it's really cool, and it's a really young Stephen Dorff is in it, the bad guy from Blade, if like so it's like it's really cool. Nobody ever talks about it, so I strongly recommend The Gate. That's my one.
Have you got any other horror films you want to plug before we wrap up?
There's only one I can think of. It's called The Loved Ones. It's an Australian horror film actually, but it's just kind of like disturbing. It's like there's not very much kills in it.
Right.
It's just like you kind of, there's like a weird dynamic between like the main two like villains, and it's kind of like it's a bit weird, but like the rest of the film, like it's just great on how it's executed, I think.
Cool.
Anything for you, Rhys?
I'm thinking random one. Seen it years ago. It was called Possum. That is a more of a psychological one, but I think the actual like creature design is quite horrible. There's like human head on spider legs. I absolutely hate the look of it.
Just like The Thing.
Hideous. Yeah, basically like that.
That's cool.
But with longer legs, like legs reaching to this, like the roof of this room. It's horrendous.
I have seen the poster, and the poster put us off because I was like, that looks hideous.
Absolutely horrendous. That.
Fair enough. Right, well, unfortunately, I think that's all the blood and guts we can stomach in one episode without becoming a video nasty. Don't want to get flagged by Spotify. Should we say an audio nasty? I think that would be more accurate. Now we pose the question to you guys at home: what's your favourite scary movie, or what's your favourite scary movie? I feel like is more adequate. Get in touch with us at cineclub.podcast@sparksunderland.com,
or you can contact us at the CineClub podcast _spark on Instagram. It's a new way to keep up to date with all the latest CineClub developments.
And as always, this episode was recorded and produced by us, the Sunderland University students, as well as being edited by Emily Main. And a special thanks to Steve Cannon, Barbara Sadler and Richard Berry. And a reminder that our 4 killers today have consisted of me, Rhys,
me, Connell,
me, Jake,
and me, Billy. This has been a CineClub production for Spark. Thanks for listening.